Good morning, good morning. Welcome to today's board gaming breakfast. Gonna wait a few minutes to see if anyone trickles in, but for those of you who are new, this is a weekly live stream that I like to do Monday through Friday from about 8 to around 8:30, depending on how long the exercises take. It's my time where I get to kind of choreograph 3 videos for content to go up on the YouTube channel. But the benefit of watching it live is you get to see the unfiltered, uncut version of myself, which you may enjoy or not enjoy. But how the breakfast works is I'll bring a game to the table to talk about that I've enjoyed recently or that's in our collection, and kind of gloss over a few of the mechanics as to why we enjoy it, why it stays on the shelf and doesn't get traded. And then we'll move into the next portion of the breakfast where we talk about we take the game of the day and we'll add a random mechanic into it, and then we'll finish off today's live stream with trying to design a board game in 5 minutes or less. So with that out of the way, I'm going to jump right into the first video. All right. Quickly get my water bottle off screen. All right. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we are going to be talking about Viticulture. So this is the Viticulture wine crate. So it's the big box that includes everything. But we will be discussing the mechanics that I enjoy from the game, and gonna restart that because that was cringe. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about Viticulture. We'll talk about the mechanics that I enjoy this game and why it stays in our collection. So there are 2 mechanics that I'm going to be highlighting today, and this is not a full rules overview. I will link one of my favorite overviews of the game in the comments below. But today I'm just going to be talking about the Wake Up track and the Grande Meeple. So quick background, Viticulture is a game all about making wine, published by Stonemaier Games. And you have this vineyard board, which I have folded in half, that you will be placing your workers out into to try and plant vines, to harvest grapes, to make wine, to be the one that wins the game by getting the most points once somebody crosses the 25-point victory track. And so the game is played over a series of rounds, and the order for who goes in each round is determined by this Wake Up track. And so everybody has this little rooster meeple that at the end of each round, whenever you pass, you'll choose what slot you want to wake up in, and this determines the turn order. And so as you can see, going earlier in the turn order, there's less benefits that you'll gain when you pass from season to season. So I'm showing the Tuscany board because that's our preferred board to play with. But if you can kind of see here, there are 4 different colored worker placement zones, and that is dictating what seasons are happening. So you'll start in this green zone, then when you pass from, I think it's spring to summer, the summer is the yellow zone, and then fall is orange, and blue is winter. And so you have the 4 seasons that you have to plan out where to place your workers in. And so one of the cool parts about this worker placement mechanic is not all of the places on the board are available at every given time. And so that kind of leads into my second favorite mechanic in the game is, so the worker spots scale based on the player count. And so if you're playing a 1 to 2 player game, you'll only have 1 space available for each zone to place into. 3 to 4, you'll gain access to 2 spaces. And as you can see, there's a benefit on the second space unlocked, so you'd get that bonus. So it starts to incentivize playing there early because you'll get a small bonus to it. And then if you're playing a 5 or 6 player game, all 3 spaces will be unlocked. And one of the cool elements that Jamie added into this game is that, say we're playing a 2 player game and my opponent takes this draw a vine card and blocks me out of going there, everybody has this Grande Meeple, which for visuals is bigger than the standard meeples workers that you're going to be placing throughout the game. And that breaks the rule of, I just caught that off screen. That was pretty pretty agile of me. But the Grande meeple breaks the placement rule. So typically, you wouldn't be able to place a worker in a space that's already occupied. The Grande worker gets to ignore that. So you won't get the benefit of the space when you place there, but you will get to still take the action. I think that's a really cool way to have a, I guess, kind of get out of jail free card where you can't feel blocked out in the entirety of the game, but you have to use it carefully because you only get one per round. So while I might want to draw that wine card, maybe I'm thinking down the line that I have an order that I really want to fill in winter and I'm lower in player order, so I don't want to be blocked out of that. So the decision to hold on to my Grande meeple till then is probably the strategy that I'd want to end up going. And so the puzzle of determining the wake-up order and the strategic tactfulness of deciding when to use your Grande meeple are the two concepts in viticulture that I very much enjoy and find the puzzle of it all to still be very fresh and engaging every time we've played. For background information, I've played viticulture with Michaela at 2-player, probably close to 15-20 times. So each time feels like, while it's the same puzzle of planning out the seasons and trying to get 25 victory points, that path of getting there always feels new and refreshing. And so those are the mechanics that I really enjoy in viticulture. I'd love to know what yours are in the comments below. If you like this type of video, feel free to subscribe. I post videos to this channel every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and look forward to engaging with you in the comments. Hope to hear from you soon. That's video 1 for anyone watching live. So I'm gonna take a pause and drink some water. I don't think anyone's watching, so that's okay. But we'll get ready for video 2. Gotta do a little hair check. So for anyone watching, I do have a scar. Kind of can see it right there. But my mother hates it, so I always gotta keep it covered. All right, getting ready for video number 2. Let me just make sure. All right, we're on the right screen there. So welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to take the board game Viticulture and have a random game prompt to tell us what mechanic to add into it. So for those of you who are new, in our weekly live streams, we'll bring a game to the table and talk about the things we like, which in a previous video, that was Viticulture. And so today, we are going to consult our wheel of mechanics and make sure that's showing. It will decide what random mechanic that we have to add in. Good morning, Michaela. Michaela is commenting on my glasses. They are, I know you don't use cute in the cute way. So anyway, let's jump over to our mechanics wheel. So we'll spin the wheel and we will spin it until it presents us a mechanic that isn't in viticulture. And then we will set the timer. Open drafting. All right, so open drafting is our mechanic. And so we will write that here. Drafting. And we're adding that to viticulture. Do a quick spell check. Looks like we got that correct enough. But why is it not showing on the screen? There we go. All right, so bam. So now what we'll do from here is on our phone, we'll set a 5-minute timer, and that will cap us to have to brainstorm something within that time. And so I have clicked the start timer. So open drafting is, my interpretation of it, is the standard variation of drafting is you'll be selecting cards, items, something from a supply and claiming as your own. And in open drafting, I believe that is that all of the information is public. And so for the, I would probably lean to the mamas and the papas. So in Viticulture. I probably can switch screens to just my full camera face, but I'm going to step off screen for a second. La, 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 la. We'll cut that out. But in Viticulture, everyone starts with a blue and red starting card, which are originally known as the Mamas and the Papas, but since the introduction of Viticulture World, there are Mamas and Papas that are blue and Mamas and Papas that are red, and so you'll get a random pairing traditionally, and when you put these blue and red cards together, you would get your starting resources and starting cards. And so on the Mamas, you'll always get 2 workers and a random assortment of cards in the game. And on the Papas, you'll always get your Grande Meeple and some money, but then you'll have the blue cards, you'll have a decision between starting with more, like you'll have a decision of choosing one of the bottom 2 resources. And so for open drafting, I think what I would do is, depending on the player count, I'm kind of thinking Lorenzo Il Magnifico in that for the drafting your families in the Renaissance expansion, I believe it's called. You'll be foregoing certain additional resources. You'll be bidding on the house powers that you want, and so that has a similar open drafting where you can outbid somebody by choosing to start with less resources. So I think I would add something like that into Viticulture for the sake of this brainstorm. And so maybe it's you will deal out the different Mamas and Papas. How would you do that? Because everyone's getting a Grande Meeple, money, and cards. So maybe you would be bidding on... So everyone's dealt out a blue card to start with, and then you would be doing an open draft of... So it's open draft auction. Maybe this isn't the right route to go. I was thinking auction for some reason. So maybe all of the drawing card spaces in the board. So there is one for each season, I believe, where you have these houses up at the top of the board. And so each time a draw... Okay, there's only 2. So there's this one and that one. So in those 2 sections, potentially anytime somebody goes there, there would be an open draft that maybe each section would have 3 face-up cards that is like the market to draft from. And anytime that you go there, everybody else gets to pick a card as well after you, where there's open information for that. And so anytime that somebody would gain a card in the game, whether it's from a location or from any of the other various ways of gaining cards, it would trigger an open draft. And so you would have the number of players playing in the game, that many cards face up shown for you to pick from, and you would pick clockwise in like drafting the cards there. I think that would be how I would try to add open drafting into the game. I'd like to preface it and say, but I think that would actively make Viticulture less of an enjoyable game because it would be more kind of finicky, and there'd be a lot of slow... So I'll finish that thought and recap where we got to. I think one of the things that appeals to me in Viticulture is that the actions in the game are fairly quick and snappy, and so you can kind of go back and forth taking these quick actions to do small benefits throughout the game. Adding that open drafting anytime a card is gained would create a lot longer of a playtime, and that would be something personally I would be less interested in. But for the sake of this brainstorming exercise, to recap where we got to, is our challenge was to add open drafting into viticulture. And we came up with 2 ways of trying to implement it. We have our red and blue starting cards that at the beginning of the game, everyone would be dealt out their blue starting card, and then they would be, whoever has the least amount of money would then be drafting their red starting card. Is one way to add open drafting into the game, which to test that, I would ask Michaela or whoever else I was playing Viticulture with at the time of, hey, I have a variant that I'd like to try for, instead of assigning the mamas and the papas, or the red and the blue cards. I apologize for not continuing to use those as the red and blue cards, but instead of being dealt randomly the red and blue cards, we'll deal out the blue cards randomly to everyone, and then whoever has the least amount of money to start gets to then draft their red card as a setup. So that would be one way to test the open drafting concept that we came up with. The second open drafting concept that we came up with for the stream is that anytime a card is taken from either the wake up track or some of the draw cards here, like the spaces, anytime a player would draw a card, that would trigger a draft as well. And so for each deck, you would have a number of face-up cards based on the player count. So if we were playing with 2-player, there would be 2 face-up cards for you to see from each of the decks. And when a player hits a draw card action, they would then get to be the first to select from that market of which card they want, and then all other players in clockwise order would then get to draft one of the remaining cards. And so I would follow kind of the same principles of the next time we played Viticulture. I'd choose probably not to do it the same time that we're drafting the mamas and the papas, or the blue and yellow cards, or blue and red cards. I guess there's not too much impact between the two. I would probably test them both at the same time if I was really serious about trying to add an open drafting concept into the game. But I would state to all the players playing that traditionally all of the card decks will start with no information given. In this gameplay, I'd like to test out having a visible draft market for you to select from. And so depending on the player count, if we were playing with 3 players, I would just draw and flip 3 cards face up, probably above the board, as available cards for people to select. And then I would just say, anytime you see that card symbol with a plus in it, so there's a few on the row here, that would trigger a open draft, and the player who triggers it gets to pick first. And at the end of each draft, you would then replenish the whatever colored deck that people selected from. And so that would be how I'd test it. So feel free to leave in the comments below, or comment down below, what your thoughts are either on these 2 ideas, or if you have another way to add in open drafting. I'd love to hear it. If you like this style of content, feel free to subscribe. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday following similar formats, so look forward to engaging with you further. We are done with video 2. Sorry for the snap. That should spike the sound enough for me to pick it up in editing. All right, let's pick up Viticulture because we don't need it for the rest of today. All right. I'll resort these cards after the stream. We'll just move them off to the side. Bam. Wham, bam, bam, bam. Got plenty of space. We'll drink some more water and then finish up with our last challenge of the day. All right, so we'll be back in full camera. All right, so we're gonna run into our last video of today. And so similar to the last segment where we had 5 minutes to add in open drafting into Viticulture, we will have 5 minutes to design a game from a prompt. And so I will get into character for the last video. Welcome back to today's channel. In this video, welcome back to today's channel. What? I'm having a brain fart. Let's get some more water and start from the top. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we will be designing a game from a random game prompt in 5 minutes or less. So if you are new to these style of videos, we have our fun tool that we like to utilize from the letsmakeagame.net, where they have a game prompt generator. So if we jump over into this screen, I think we are showing on screen. Yep. So they have this tool called the game idea generator, where it will prompt you with a genre, rule, setting, and theme for you to design around. And so what's going to happen is we'll click the generate button, and we'll then set our phone to a 5-minute timer and kind of ramble our way through a design comment. And once the alarm sounds on our phone, we'll wrap up with recapping where we got to. So let's generate a new prompt. So the genre is a puzzle platformer. The rule is build the level you play. The setting is medieval, and the theme is individual versus society. That is a juicy game prompt. And so now, without further ado, hi YouTube, hi Mick. We will set the 5-minute alarm or timer and start rambling. All right, so we got puzzle platformer. So that I really think should be polyomino. Paul can't write, can't do nothing. Let's clean that up. So polyomino. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with that word, it's basically Tetris pieces, is where puzzle platformer leads me to. The build the level you play. So that I would say is medieval and individual versus society. And so I think I think this would be interesting to do. Everyone has a board state here, and we'll say maybe it's a grid of 5. It's an interesting way of segmenting it, but everyone has their little board here that potentially is part of a larger player board. And I'm going to ramble to kind of just get stuff on screen to kind of talk through my thoughts after I have a visual to talk through. And so you have something like this, and maybe you have kind of your stats here. And we have you can hold 4. Something like that. And then maybe everyone gets a character that they play that gives them an action or power or something like that. And this would have that. Sorry, I'm not explaining. I'm trying to get all my thoughts out, and then we'll talk through it. And so this is great, engaging content. I know everyone is very wowed by my ability to entertain the masses while scribbling stuff. We got a polyomino arrow to nothing. So I think we were trying to say that that's Tetris for those that aren't familiar. And we have something like this, other Tetris pieces or smaller polyomino shapes. All right, so build the level. All right, we got some comments in chat. So let me build the level you play. Genius Square. Yeah, Genius Square is sort of where I'm going with this one. Michaela probably knows that this is a recycled idea from one of the first concepts I had called Polypirates, which kind of went nowhere. But I think I have got enough of the concepts down, so we'll pause the timer and talk through what junk I just drew on the screen and figure out if it feels like a game. And so let's make that a W. But our puzzle platformer, build the level you play, medieval, individual versus society. My pitch for this game would be you're taking on the role of a knight trying to court the princess. And how that works is you have your smooth moves to try and get to the castle, which are these polyomino cards. And so this would be a draft and write, I think. I don't know if that is a mechanic that's out there, but that's what we're going with. So what's going to happen at the start of each round, there'll be a card flipped from the card, like the round deck, that has this same setup, but it will populate the board. And so this is where you start. And then this is where the princess lives. And this is the medieval city that you have to kind of navigate your way through. And so there will be spots that are blocked out with you not able to go. And there will be coins and other trinkets that you can pick up throughout the course of the game. And so it will populate kind of different symbols, but the overall premise is that this card will be flipped and it'll show kind of how the board will be seated for the round. And once you know that, everyone will be dealt out 3 cards, and you will do a draft style of picking one to keep and passing. And once you've ended up with the 3 cards that you'll use for the round, you will then place them starting with the starting location. So the first piece has to touch this spot here, and your goal is to be able to make it to the princess to be one of her suitors. And once that happens, you'll cross off. So if we ended up with those 3 shapes, let's see if we even make it to the castle. So we'll kind of put that first shape in here, and we got to remember that this space here and this space here are not available for us to cross. And then, so we got our little zigzag lightning bolt. Oh, we have our little L piece here that we place that crosses these off. And then we can use our little smaller L piece to make it to the princess. And so that is the course that we've made. So we've successfully made it to the princess this round. Making it to the princess would give you bonus victory points. And all of the spaces that you cross through, you would gain the resource bonuses that you passed through to be able to spend in the second part of the phase. And spending those would be able to increase your power level, which maybe would allow you to do different things based on the character that you're pursuing. If you have enough money, you can buy gifts, which are potentially cards that you would tuck under your player board, that if you picked an apple from the tree symbol and made it to the princess this round, you'd get +3 victory points. So you could spend money to purchase gifts and such. And so this would be money. This would be stamina. And so stamina is basically, potentially there are, knightsmen that don't want you to make it to the princess, that if you have to spend them to get through certain, like, not all of the squares in the game would give you bonuses, but there'd be stamina that you have to spend to outwit or outmuscle the guys to get through. You would get your health. If you have to stay above a certain threshold in order to like have the endurance of being one of the many that are competing with the princess, and not to get competing for the princess and not to get discouraged. And maybe we only have 3 trackers for the start to figure out. And so this game would be played over 5 rounds potentially, or we'd still have to figure out the round count, and that would be determined by how many cards are shuffled into this deck and flipped for the round. And we would have to go from there. So to recap, the things we'd still have to figure out is the player power, or the player characters that you're playing as, and what is the incentive for going up this track. We would have to generate the map cards of how they're populated with different symbols that would help with gift purchasing and blockades, and figure out how many different symbols are on the map cards. And then we would have to create a deck of drafting cards of symbols to move with. And so potentially there would be the UX for the character cards, or the user interface, the UI, would have, we're playing over 5 rounds, there's potentially an ability to upgrade it 3 times, I think maybe makes sense. But you'd have an innate power. And as you can spend something, one of the resources, to figure out what the requirement is to move into the different tiers, those would give you ongoing abilities, like anytime you draft and use the 2-piece, you can use it twice or something like that. So we'd have to come up with at least 4 characters and character powers there to see if it's a 1 to 4 player game. We would probably use games that have existed before this one to figure out all the shapes, so that wouldn't be a huge time sink of figuring out what those shape cards are. And we would then try and table it and see what works. So we'd probably need to come up with the item cards, which we'd have to assign a money cost and kind of the symbol scoring for that. But that's sort of where we got to today with our prompt. So to try and give it a... Why is this frozen? It's not frozen, but it's not wanting to... There we go. So we got that. So to recap, our prompt was a puzzle platformer. The rule was build your own, the level you play. The setting was medieval, and then the theme was individual versus society. So let's see if we satisfied the prompt first. So it's a puzzle platformer, I guess, sort of, in the sense that if you consider these blocked out spaces to be like obstacles, you're trying to get from point A to point B, which is in standard platformers, and we are using polyomino pieces as our puzzle aspect for that. The build the level you play is, so it's randomly generated, and then you're building your own path that you move out through. So I think we've satisfied that. Medieval, I think of princesses, knights, and so I'd give that the thumbs up that worked. And individual versus society, so if we are one of the many suitors of the princess, I think that potentially could finagle into be reasonable as well. So I think we satisfied the prompt, and what we came up with is a round-based game where you're drafting polyomino cards to then draw in your map for the game, which will determine what building the princess is hanging out in, and what building you start in, and the map that you have to try and traverse through. And so you'll be playing this over a series of 4 or 5 rounds that you will draft 3 polyomino tiles, use those to map out to gain the symbols and bonuses that you'll get with your track pushing, and hopefully help satisfy your player power. And at the end of each round, you'll have the ability to purchase gift cards for basically additional victory point modifiers based on the number of symbols that you cross through and making it to the princess. And you'll score victory points for every time you reach the princess. And I think that's that. So it's not a full concept, so I'd still have to do some ironing out of the rough patches, but I think this would be something that would be easily testable. I would probably test it in person and just create player boards that you can laminate to use dry erase markers on to test the core concept of this flipping and crossing out. But that is our puzzle platformer. Feel free to comment below what your thoughts are on this mechanic. Is this a game that you'd even be interested in playing? If you like this style of content, I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and would love to engage with you in the comments below. And if you liked this video, please subscribe. Have a good one. All right, that's video number 3. I'm assuming only Michaela is watching today, but if not, thank you all for joining. I look forward to chatting with you all tomorrow.